My sister demanded I abort my baby so she could be first. The rest of the family turned on me. What happened next left them in silence. After 7 months of heartbreak, disappointment, and failed attempts, my husband Hugo and I were finally expecting. The joy in the room was palpable when I broke the news. Tears filled my eyes, and Hugo squeezed my hand as I told everyone. The reaction was instant. My father cheered, a few aunts clapped, and cousins congratulated me. But Serena, my 19-year-old younger sister, sat frozen at the table. Her face twisted with rage as she slammed her wine glass against the countertop so hard that it splintered into sharp fragments. "How dare you?" she hissed. Her voice sliced through the laughter like a knife. I deserved to be the first. The room fell silent. Nobody knew how to respond. Serena's eyes darted around, looking for backup. Mom tried to soften her tone. "Sweetheart, we've talked about this. You're too young. 19 isn't the right age to start a family." But Serena was relentless. She shoved her chair back and stormed toward the door. Before leaving, she turned to me, her eyes burning with fury. "You have 1 week to terminate that pregnancy, or I'll make sure you regret it." The next morning, I woke to pounding on my front door. Hugo shuffled out in his boxers, yawning, only to find Serena standing there, her arms full of papers. Without hesitation, she thrust them against his chest. "I made appointments," she snapped. 3 clinics, 3 openings. She just has to pick one. My stomach turned as Hugo tore the papers into shreds, scattering them across the porch. But Serena wasn't done. She spent the rest of the day blasting messages across our neighborhood group chat, telling everyone I was selfish and ruining her life. She told them she had booked me into clinics, as though my body was hers to command. That Sunday, Mom called for a family meeting. I should have known better, but Hugo insisted we go to show we weren't hiding. When we arrived at Mom's house, 19 relatives were crammed into the living room. Serena stood by the fireplace like she was about to deliver a TED Talk. She had a PowerPoint presentation projected onto the wall complete with bullet points titled, "Why Claire Shouldn't Be First." My jaw dropped. She actually clicked through slides with pictures of me looking unprepared, notes about my unstable emotions, and sarcastic captions about my career. She argued that being the first grandchild's mother was her right because she was younger and would be cuter as a mom. Our Uncle Liam, who was a lawyer, finally raised his hand. "Serena, there's no legal precedent for forcing someone to abort so that you can get pregnant first. That's not how this works." Serena's face crumbled. She pointed at me, her voice shaking. "If she doesn't end it by Monday, I swear I will never speak to any of you again." Everyone glanced at one another. My Aunt Jenny muttered, "Then don't." And in a unified chorus, 24 people shrugged and said, "See you, Serena." She stormed out, sobbing dramatically. We thought it was the end. But Serena was never someone who accepted defeat. For 7 months, I carried my baby while Serena disappeared from family gatherings, social media, and even her job. She blocked us all. Life quieted down, and Hugo and I began to prepare for parenthood. We picked out baby clothes, painted the nursery, and threw ourselves into the joy we had worked so hard to achieve. For the first time, I allowed myself to breathe. But peace never lasts when Serena is involved. The baby shower was a bright, beautiful day filled with pink and blue balloons, laughter, and the smell of fresh-baked cake. I was glowing, standing beside Hugo as we opened gifts. Suddenly, the door burst open. Gasps filled the room. There she was, Serena. She strutted in with her hand cradling a swollen stomach. She wore a shirt that screamed in bold letters, "First grandchild loading." The room froze. Mom dropped the cake knife onto the table with a sharp clatter. Serena beamed, spinning around so everyone could see her belly. "Surprise," she sang. "I'm almost due. I got pregnant right after that horrible family meeting where you all betrayed me. I'm 10 weeks away from giving birth." The silence was suffocating. My heart sank. The math didn't even make sense. I was due in 8 weeks. Serena claimed she was 10 weeks out. When I tried to calmly mention my due date, her face turned crimson with rage. She grabbed my arm hard enough to leave marks. "The dates don't matter," she hissed in my ear. "I'll make sure mine arrives first." Then she let go and swept out of the room, leaving us all in stunned disbelief. The next day, Mom called me sobbing. Serena's roommate had spilled everything. Serena wasn't just pregnant, she was obsessed. She had ordered black market labor induction chemicals from a Romanian website. She was determined to force her body into labor before me. But it got worse. Mom said Serena had paid a girl she found on Craigslist, someone whose mother used to be a midwife in the Philippines, to perform a C-section in her living room. The girl refused, saying Serena was only 41 weeks. But Serena threatened her with kitchen knives, screaming she'd do it herself if no one helped. Eventually, they used box cutters, sterilized with vodka. The result was a blood-soaked nightmare. Her neighbors saw red liquid seeping beneath the apartment door and called 911. Serena nearly bled to death. Her baby, Jake, was born purple and barely breathing. They both barely survived the ambulance ride. Jake was placed in the NICU on a ventilator, while Serena underwent an emergency hysterectomy. She would never carry another child again. When Serena woke up in the hospital, tubes and wires covering her body, the first words out of her mouth weren't gratitude that she was alive. She called me. Her voice rasped through the oxygen mask. "You did this," she whispered. "My baby is dying because you couldn't wait for me." I couldn't believe what I was hearing. My sister had mutilated herself trying to one-up me, and now she blamed me. But the strangest part was what happened afterward. The family split in two. Half believed Serena had lost her mind and was entirely responsible. The other half thought I should have waited. Some even suggested I should have aborted for the sake of peace. And yet everyone agreed on one thing: we had to be there for the baby. My pregnancy, my child, was shoved to the side. Every time I tried to share my excitement, the conversation shifted back to Serena's tragedy. It was like my joy wasn't allowed to exist. For days before my due date, I was admitted for monitoring. Serena's baby remained in critical condition. Doctors said the next 48 hours would determine if he'd survive. But what terrified me most wasn't the medical reports. It was the sight of Serena herself. She wasn't supposed to be walking around, but there she was, pale, stitched, but upright. She stood in the hallway between the NICU and maternity ward, staring at me. Not at the nurses. Not at Hugo. Not even at Jake's room. Her gaze was locked on my stomach with an intensity that made my blood run cold. The doctor scheduled my induction for the next morning at 8 a.m. Serena knew the exact time. She had already been asking the nurses which rooms were used for delivery, whether newborns were ever left unattended, and how the transfer between maternity and NICU worked. That night, I woke at 4 a.m. to the sound of Hugo's voice in the dark. He was on the phone, pacing by the window. His words chilled me. "Yes, she's been monitoring the halls. Yes, she's been asking where newborns are kept. No, I don't care if it's standard protocol, I want names. Who will be at the door? How many guards? What happens if she tries to force her way in?" His hands shook as he scribbled notes onto the hospital pad, demanding security codes, panic button locations, and exact lockdown protocols. Within an hour, the head of hospital security, Leonard Bergman, arrived at our door. He walked us through every measure. Baby security tags, electronic badges, automatic lockdown triggers. He even asked me to send him Serena's photo so he could distribute it to every guard. At 5 a.m., a woman from social services arrived with a clipboard. She documented every threat Serena had made, every danger she posed. She promised to begin the paperwork for an emergency restraining order immediately, one that could be signed by a judge before the induction began. As I lay there, Hugo holding my hand, I realized something terrifying. Serena's obsession hadn't ended with her hysterectomy. She couldn't accept losing. And tomorrow morning, when my baby entered this world, Serena might be waiting to strike. The contractions hit me like a freight train at exactly 7:45 a.m. The delivery room lights glared overhead, sterile and cold, while Hugo gripped my hand so tightly that my fingers turned white. Nurses scurried around, attaching monitors, double-checking 4 lines, and prepping the incubator for my baby's arrival. But even through the pain, I couldn't stop glancing at the door. Every squeak of rubber soles in the hallway, every click of a clipboard, made my heart pound with one terrifying thought. Serena knows I'm here. Hugo leaned close, whispering into my ear, "Focus on us. Focus on our baby. Security is outside. Nobody's getting in." His voice trembled, betraying the very fear he wanted to hide. The next few hours blurred into a haze of agony and determination. At 11:02 a.m., our son came into the world, his cry slicing through the air like a miracle. Tears streamed down my face as the nurse placed him against my chest. For one moment, everything else faded. Serena's madness, my family's betrayal, the endless months of tension. I had my baby. He was real, warm, alive, and mine. But just as I exhaled with relief, the door creaked open. Hugo jumped up, blocking the entrance before I could even see who it was. Leonard, the security supervisor, stepped in with 2 guards flanking him. His voice was low but urgent. "She's here," he said simply. "Serena's in the building." My body went cold. I clutched my newborn closer, his tiny fists curling against my skin. "Where?" I whispered. "Downstairs in the NICU," Leonard replied. "She tried to check in under a fake visitor name." The nurses recognized her. "She's pacing the halls, demanding to see her son, but she keeps asking questions about newborn security tags. We've escorted her out twice, but she finds her way back in." Hugo's rage boiled over. "Why the hell is she still inside this hospital? My wife just gave birth. Our son is not safe with her lurking around." Leonard lifted his hands. "We're filing for an emergency trespass order as we speak. But I wanted you to be aware. We've added extra guards to the maternity floor." He glanced at me, his face softening. "Don't worry. No one's touching your baby." But I wasn't reassured. Because I knew Serena. Rules didn't matter to her. Boundaries were just challenges waiting to be broken. That night, as the ward quieted and the monitors hummed, Hugo insisted on sleeping in the recliner by my bed, arms folded, eyes half closed but never fully resting. Around 2 a.m., the silence shattered with an alarm, a shrill, piercing siren echoing through the hall. The newborn abduction system had been triggered. My chest tightened. "Oh my God, is he?" I looked at the bassinet beside me, relief flooding through me when I saw my baby still there, sleeping peacefully. But the alarm meant someone had tried to tamper with the security tag. The intercom crackled. "Code pink. All units locked down. Repeat. Code pink." Hugo was already on his feet, pulling the bassinet closer to my bed, standing like a wall between us and the door. Nurses ran past, their faces pale. A guard's voice thundered from the hallway, "Ma'am, stop. You can't go in there." Then Serena's voice, wild, furious, desperate, cut through the chaos. "That's my nephew. She doesn't deserve him. I'll show you what it feels like to be last." My blood froze. She was outside our door. The pounding began, her fists slamming against the metal, her voice rising to a banshee scream. "Give him to me. You stole my chance. You ruined my life. I won't let you take this from me too." The lock held, but Hugo stood pressed against it, as if his body alone could shield us. I sat there, clutching my baby so tightly I thought I might crush him, tears streaming down my face. Then came the crash. A tray of medical instruments hit the floor, followed by a grunt of struggle. Guards shouted, and Serena's voice grew muffled, then cut off altogether. Silence followed, broken only by the beep of my 4 monitor. Minutes later, Leonard stepped in, his face grim. "She's in custody," he said. "We had to restrain her. She'll be transferred to the psychiatric ward under evaluation." Relief should have come, but it didn't. Because even as I held my baby safe in my arms, I couldn't shake the image of Serena's face, the raw hatred, the twisted obsession. I knew she wasn't done. Not by a long shot. 3 weeks later, we were home. Balloons still floated from the baby shower, and the nursery smelled faintly of powder and paint. Hugo tried to act like life was returning to normal. He worked half-days, he cooked dinner, he even hummed lullabies off-key while changing diapers. But every time the phone rang, we both stiffened. Every knock at the door made me jump. And then it happened. A letter arrived. No stamp, no return address, just shoved under our front door. I recognized the handwriting instantly. Serena's. The note was short, scrawled with jagged fury. Enjoy him while you can. Because the first one isn't always the one who lasts. I dropped the paper as if it had burned me. Hugo picked it up, cursing under his breath. That's it. We're filing for a permanent restraining order. She's never coming near us again. But as I lay awake that night, staring at the ceiling while my baby slept beside me, one thought clawed at my mind. Restraining orders are just paper. And Serena had already proven she was willing to cross every line. What none of us knew then was that the real nightmare hadn't even begun. Because 2 days later, Serena vanished from the psychiatric ward.